Hi everyone, welcome to video 19 in the Twin Flames Healing Journey teaching series. This is Molly, and in this video series we've been talking about the energies of the twin flame experience and when you believe you have a really deep soul connection to another person. The purpose and intention of this teaching series is to help move you through your own experiences, to help with your healing work, to allow you to see where you've perhaps been blocked, but also to validate what you've been through and to know that there are thousands of people on the planet who have similar experiences. The twin flame experience is quite unique because the mission is ultimately unconditional love within and without. And you see that through the mirror of another person, and it helps you to grow in acceptance of yourself as well as in acceptance of everyone else on the planet. The twin flame mission is one that's here to benefit humanity, and it is a very hard road. It's often emotionally intense. It pushes you into those dark places within yourself that you didn't see before. You go through your fears. You deal with some emotions that you didn't realize you were holding. But ultimately, as you move through this journey, you do reach higher levels of unconditional love, a bit like reaching that highest summit of the mountaintop. So in this video 19, we're going to talk about the bridges to union. And there are different ways to reach union, reunion, or reconnection. And that's typically what people are looking for. Yet there are some other things along the way that come up before that reunion or union occurs. Now, in the previous video, we talked about the purpose of separation, which is healing. It's a deep healing experience. It's where you are able to see even more of yourself that you didn't realize initially, and you come into this fuller awareness of who you are. The separation is actually a gift, because separation allows you to do your healing work without bumping up against the other person, so to speak. Relationships already have many layers within them, healthy relationships. If you're both doing deep healing work while you're in relationship, it can be jolting to the stability of the relationship. It's almost like it's easier to say, well, I'm going to be over here in my corner doing my thing while you're over there in your corner doing your thing. Then we can each heal, we can honor ourselves, we can take care of our own business. And then when that union occurs, you are both stepping forward at a higher level of personal awareness and a higher level of self-love and self-acceptance. So the separation can be a very trying time. And for each twin flame connection, it can show up in different ways. Your separation might be a few months. It might be a few years. It might be a few decades. It can play out in so many different ways. So we're just talking about the generalities here of how this plays out. Of course, the other important element with separation is free will, choice, karma, and what you're doing actively in your personal work to heal yourself. And again, this is how it can take longer. There is no required deadline. There is no finish line. It's all by choice. It's almost as if, how uncomfortable does it have to get before you understand what needs to heal within you? So the separation phases are important just for understanding what it's all about. But then once you're on the other side of the healing, there is a period of time which I call the quarantine period, and it can feel quite necessary. The quarantine period happens after a tough 3D experience, after a karmic relationship, after a soulmate relationship ends, after an ego death, after any big healing event occurs, then you need a quarantine period, which is all about bringing your own energy back. And doing your own personal debrief to feel more grounded, centered, and strong. So this is when you look back on your relationships or whatever the big experience was and look at your responsibility, your choices, how you created a certain that aspect, because you are the one who's making choices in your life. And so what did you agree to that you don't want to experience again? Where do you need to change how you approach a situation, your life, or a relationship? Big questions. And this is where the true change occurs in this quarantine period. And I call it a quarantine period because it's actually quite healthy to be alone in your own energy, to come back to center, to maybe be a hermit. Maybe you shut down certain aspects of your life so that you can just come back to yourself. And it is about regaining your strength, and to do that hindsight review of what you never want to experience again. And this is where you fully integrate what you've learned. And this is also where energetically you're shifting into a new trajectory in your life, where you're saying, I never want to go through that again. I never want to change that again. I never want that energy within me, and I want to raise it up. I want to learn from this. I want to heal from this. I want to go into what is within me that created this experience. So this is important because so much of the twin flame connection is that you are equals in spirit, but in the physical, you could be learning in different ways, different timelines, different experiences. And there's never judgment around that, because it's meant to be an understanding that people make different choices for different reasons. And what you're coming into fuller awareness of is why you made certain choices and how you can learn and grow from them, how you can take responsibility. And so the quarantine period allows you basically to do your own personal debrief on where you are on your path, on your journey, and what you have been learning, or perhaps where you've been hitting your head against something, and now you're really ready to make a new commitment to a new choice. And that choice could be in the types of relationships you want in your life, the types of people you want in your life. This is big change stuff. This is where you can do a new career. You move to a different place. You change friendships. You change your social circles. You do kind of this big transformation in your life that is really meant to honor more of who you truly are that you didn't see before. And the quarantine period is a quarantine from those other energies that no longer serve you, as well as a quarantine from too much happening too fast, where you don't feel stable or you don't feel grounded or strong. So this again will be based on your own timeline and your own choices, and also how you make choices around your healing. But what it ultimately does is it elevates you. It elevates you up to a higher place. And when you are at that higher place, you begin attracting the new into your life that resembles your own energy. Because when we make new choices, we get new results. And when we are owning and taking responsibility for our previous choices, we learn from them. We don't judge ourselves. We don't put ourselves to impossible standards. We understand that we were always doing the best we could with what we knew and who we were. And so a big part of quarantine is self-forgiveness. And I actually feel myself getting teary-eyed around this because I know this is a big deal. The self-forgiveness around what did or didn't happen, what you learned, what you didn't realize you were doing, what you didn't understand you were choosing. The self-forgiveness is important because it also reconnects you to that beautiful vessel of pure, unconditional love that's always with you. And I believe it is a connection with God, Spirit, Source, the Creator, the universe, whatever name you give it. I believe that is ultimately what we're reconnecting to during the quarantine period. I know that for many people, connecting with the twin flame is something that they put a lot of emphasis on. And I'm realistic in what I share with you, because there are many ways that reconnection, that union, that reunion, that connection can occur. And so the first thing to understand is that after the quarantine period, when you've had some time and space to really claim who you are now, you went through a big healing, you went through a big transformation, you understood some things, you got clarity, you really were able to own your role, your responsibility, what you needed to see, and all of the gifts of that, because there are gifts in everything. Then it's about understanding that you were never alone. And I've talked before about how the twin flame connection is spiritual, it's a soul level thing, it's intuitive, it's energetic. And the twin who has accelerated first, so to speak, that doesn't make them better because they got there faster. It just makes them the one who can, it's like sustaining a bridge. Okay, you cross a bridge and you have to maybe put down the wood planks as you go across that bridge. But then that bridge gets more strength and it gets steadier. And that is what the first person solidifies with their own energy field. And that's why the healing doesn't really stop, because, or I should say, let me re-say that. The healing reaches a point of emotional neutrality where you're detached, you get it, you understand why certain things happened or played out or what was going on, the bigger picture. And this is how the first twin has elevated up to that higher perspective of spiritual knowledge and spiritual understanding. So it's almost as if that first person in the connection, who could often be the feminine, the divine feminine, especially in this current cycle, it's almost like she was the first one to plug in to that pure light connection, and then she sustains it. She sustains that connection, which is the bridge. Because I'm getting the image of half of a rainbow. And I referenced a rainbow in an earlier video. But it is like that arch that goes up into that pure vessel of energy and light. And then it's that person who sustains it and who has greater neutrality. At least most of the time, because we are human and you still can experience the emotions that come up from your ego mind. And those emotions are meant to be continually worked with and continually healed. So that's why I mean that the healing doesn't stop, but it gets lesser in what needs to heal. It's like instead of being something that's giant and inflamed, when you heal it, it goes into a greater point of neutrality. where you can say, oh, I get it. Sure. They had to do this and they had to make this choice. And it's actually better that that happened that way, because then I could do this and I wasn't involved in that, or blah, blah, blah. Again, you see the benefits, because from the higher perspective, there is love for everyone in every choice and in every path. So in order for that union to happen, the other side of the bridge has to be strong for arrival of the other twin. Okay, so I'm getting the image of one of those suspended bridges. And walking across that bridge can feel really wobbly and really scary, and don't look down. But it gets more stable with more neutrality and light, detachment, and love, of course. So I get the image of that suspended bridge no longer being as shaky, because it is the first person who's paved the path, who's paved the way. And so that bridge becomes firmer or stronger. This is not an engineering example, by the way. Do not ask me for how to do that. This is energetics. It's like it gets stronger for the other person to be able to walk across that bridge too. So everything with this connection first starts in the energetics of your own healing. And that's always your responsibility, no matter what gets triggered, no matter what fears come up, no matter what it feels like. That's you, and you have to own it. And chances are it's going to be something that your ego mind doesn't like, because that's the part of you that wants to be in control and be in its power, and to not be vulnerable and to not be too weak, all of that. And by the way, everyone on the planet has that stuff to some degree or another. But you know that you actually become more courageous and stronger the more you're able to open up to your vulnerability or to where you feel weak. And so again, it actually reinforces that image of that bridge, the suspended bridge, that actually gets stronger the more you take a step across it. So you have that first person who gets what it's about, who understands it, who has done their own work, or maybe they're continuing to do their own healing work, but they've done a big chunk of it. And that's why this separation is important, because at least it's like, I'm getting the image of, have you ever, I hope you've never had this, because I haven't, but it's almost like when both people are maniacs in a situation, it's too much, right? It's too much chaos. It's too much of this. It's too much of that. It's overwhelming. It's like, you need to be in your own space to do some of this really deep work. And that's how you get stronger, is within. And that's actually how you also retain your power, and you understand more of who you are, and you get bigger. Like energetically, you get bigger because you understand what you were learning, your own solutions, and your own ways to move through it. So that's really important here, is that, again, the separation has been key, but you're moving the separation time to the quarantine period, where you come back to center, you get stable, you get stronger, you understand what's going on, you honor the connection, you take responsibility for your stuff, and it's understanding that is how you move the energy forward, and that's how you can arrive at feeling confident about union, reunion, or reconnection. And I know that there's so many different, it's almost like different twin flame paths or storylines, if you will, because I know that some of you are coming into union very soon. Some of you haven't met yet, but you feel that happening. And some of you have met and you've been separated, and then you feel that there's a reconnection or a reunion occurring. So there's different ways this can play out. I'm going to talk about more of that in the next video, but it's important first to prepare you what that preparation is like energetically, because this could be a good visual for you to do if you are ready for that union energy, is understanding that you need to be strong enough within you. And that relates to, as we've been talking about in this video series, the integration and merging of your masculine and feminine energies, where that you love all of yourself. And we've talked about it through the chakras and how you own all 7 of those chakra energies and what those are about. And we talk about it as how you've healed deeply for whatever it is for you. And you've probably done your healing work through other relationships, through your family, through the programming you received when you were younger. You've seen the bigger picture of your life, and you understood who you really are now. And before the true union, reunion, or reconnection can occur, you have to be solid in that, because if you're not, the union won't stick. You have to be energetic equals. But you have to be fully in yourself. And it's almost like, okay, you know, a remote control that has 2 batteries, and one battery is fully charged and the other battery is at 50%. Well, sooner or later, it's not going to work anymore, right? Like the remote control will shut down because it needs 2 batteries in order to work, and both batteries need to be at 100%. And that's a bit like how this connection energy works, is that both people have to be strong in themselves, or else you're just going to break up again, or else you're just going to have another separation because there's more healing to do. So it's really easy to idealize union and think it means, oh, well, now we're together and now we're back together, or now we just met and I know that this is our connection, now we're going to get married. Well, you know, that kind of mentality isn't even what it's about. Because yeah, marriage can have all these ideals with it, but if you've been married, you know that after the wedding or after the honeymoon and you're living with somebody, it's real life that sets in, and you need to be a team, and you need to have the communication and the maturity and the willingness and the sharing and the integrity and responsibility, the give and the take. And when you're in relationship with your equal, you don't get away with things like you did in other relationships, okay? So the connection with the twin flame is unlike any other relationship, because you don't just get away with things. You don't just slide by. This is the person who says, oh, by the way, da-da-da-da, or hey, did you realize da-da-da? Like, these are where you have actually more mature conversations, and you're forced to grow in the relationship, because it's a relationship that will propel you into even more growth and healing once you're equals together and once you're each in your power. But you have to do that work to get there. So that's why there's this bridge that's necessary before union, because if you're idealizing it and thinking it means one kind of thing, you might be disappointed. And I feel that it's necessary to just provide some realistic understandings of not only how the energy works, but how these things can play out. So in the next video, video 20, I'm going to talk about types of union, reunion, and reconnection. And then following that video, I'm going to be answering more of your questions, because I've connected with many of you around this, and you have some excellent questions that I know other people would benefit from. So when you have time, I will see you over there in video 20.